Well, I was thinking this week was a very important, an important week in the Vaishnav calendar. You know why, right? It was Valentine's Day. Half-day fasting, especially if you didn't get a Valentine's card. But it's very interesting. It was Valentine's Day. That's a big thing in the world, isn't it? And but it's very interesting. I don't know how many of you know the story behind Valentine's Day. Do you know the actual story? Because nowadays it's something very romantic, isn't it? Like a very will you be my Valentine? But you know the original story? It took place in Rome. And in Rome they used to worship like 10 gods who were they were the object of everyone's respect. And in Rome, because everyone worshipped and offered puja to those 10 gods, if anyone wanted to do anything different, they were imprisoned. There was no other religion. It was the 10 gods and that was it. So in Rome at that time, there was one very devout Christian and he couldn't give up his love for God. And so even though everything else was banned, he continued to worship God. And his name was Valentino or Valentine, or however you want to say. So he continued worshipping God even though it was not allowed. And then when the government found out, when the rulers found out, then they captured him and they put him in prison. They said, how you can profess to have some other faith apart from the 10 gods, you should have to go to prison immediately. So he went to prison. And then there he was in prison, but he continued his faith, he continued his devotion. He saw that, even if God puts me in prison, everything is happening under his will. Must be something that I need to learn from this. And so he was happy. That is a devotee actually, happy in any situation. Sometimes in our life, sometimes it ends up feeling like a prison. A situation in which we can't freely do everything we want to do. But even in that situation, we should understand, yes, our bhakti to Krishna, our bhakti to God never has to stop. So he continued on. But when the jailer was seeing him every day, Valentino, in the prison, he recognized this guy is a very intelligent person, no? How did he end up in jail? So the jailer thought, let me at least make use of some of his intelligence here. So the jailer, he had a daughter. I think his name's daughter was Juha, if I remember correctly. And she was blind. And so he said to Valentino that I want you to educate her. While you're here in jail, at least you do something useful. So you educate my daughter. So he said, yeah, no problem. Devotee is ready to serve, whatever service comes. So Valentino began serving and teaching her and educating her, his daughter, the jailer's daughter. And she was very, very impressed. And naturally, when you have a teacher, then you respect everything about them. Not just what they teach you, everything. So then, inevitably, in their interaction, the question of God came about. So he could not hold back. He said, no, there is a God. And if you worship him, then he'll reciprocate with you. So she said, wow, there's a God and he'll reciprocate with me? Valentino said, yes. So then she began worshipping God. And then one day she said to Valentino, I'm blind. And if I pray to God, will God give me sight again? And Valentino said, yeah, and God can do anything. He can achieve everything is under his control. So then she began praying, God, let me receive my eyesight back. Let me receive my eyesight back. Then one day, through the window came a bright light, and she had a mystical transformation. And the next morning when she woke up, she could see again. Miracle, she could see again. So she woke up in the morning and she was amazed. And then she spoke and her father said, wow, you can see again. And then what happened is that her father found out that Valentino had taught her about prayer, but specifically had taught her about prayer to the Christian God. So her father was very happy but unhappy. That night, Valentino found out that she had her eyesight back. So he wrote a beautiful letter to her about the power of having faith in God. And at the end of the letter, he wrote, "Your Valentine." And the next day was February the 14th, and that was the day that he was executed, because her father found out he was teaching her about the Christian God. And that's the tale of Valentine's Day. So if you actually think about it, what is Valentine's Day all about? Valentine's Day is all about faith in God, dedication to God, and ultimately love for God. But nowadays it's all about something else. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart. And the very next day, all of these things go on. Love. So everyone is looking for love. But everyone doesn't understand that anything and anyone that you try to love in this world, if you don't bring God into the center, if you don't bring Krishna in, then all of that love ultimately fails. Love has to be based on consciousness of God. And so, one time actually, one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, she came to Srila Prabhupada and she said, if I love my children and serve my children, will I then love God? Because if you love God's children, then you'll develop love for God. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, but actually it works the other way around. If you love God, then you'll love your children in the deepest way. Because Bhagavatam says, Yathataror mulanise chanena tripyati tan skanda bhujo upashaka. That Krishna is like the root of the tree. And therefore, if you give your love to Krishna, it's like watering the root. And when you water the root, then every single part of the tree, the leaves, the branches, the twigs, the flowers, every single thing becomes nourished in the process. So we have to somehow awaken our love for Krishna. Different people practice religion on different levels. Our teacher Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains this. The lowest type of religion is based on bhaya. What does bhaya mean? Fear. If you don't do this, then something terrible will happen. If you don't worship God, then you will go to hell. If you don't worship God, then ultimately everything will be taken away from you. Therefore, people have a lot of fear, isn't it? Like some people come, when they come to the temple, they're like, they have to get the Aarti. Have you seen like how people, they die for the Aarti? Because there is also this superstition that if you go to the temple and you don't get the Aarti, it's like God is not happy with you and something terrible is going to happen. So I've got to make sure I get it. Or is it? So we have all these superstitions out of fear, isn't it? I'm sure you all had, like before you leave the door, the house, there's something you have to do. Otherwise, anything could happen. So we have all these, so people are fearful, and that is their driving force behind worshipping God. But then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, higher than worshipping or practicing out of fear or bhaya is to is to worship out of asha. What does asha mean?
Expectation.
Hope, expectation, desire, material gain, yeah. That, I worship Krishna, I worship God because I will get something, because I will receive something. God, I know I'm a sinner, but make me a winner. Isn't it? We want something from God. Whenever we go in front of Krishna, we always have something we're asking for, isn't it? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, higher than that is when you worship out of kartavya. What does kartavya mean? duty, because God has already done. I don't need to ask Krishna for anything. Already He did so many things for me. Gave me so many things, provided so many things, so many opportunities. So therefore I should be grateful. In Sanskrit, the word for gratefulness or gratitude is krita gya. Gya means to know, and krita means something which has been done. So the Sanskrit word for gratitude literally means to know what has been done for you. Krishna already did so many things for me, so I should offer something back. But then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, higher than all of these things is when you worship God out of love, prema. Prema pumartho mahan. Normally in the Vedic scriptures, the process of religion is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. First you do your dharma. Then from your dharma you will get artha. Krishna will give you everything, all success. Your children will be married, your house will be big, your position will be influential. Jai Jagadisha Hare. From dharma comes artha, and from artha comes kama, which means when you have all the artha, when you have all the objects, then kama, all your desires will be fulfilled. All of those things you dreamed of when you were a child to have, you will have all of those things. And then what will eventually happen once you have all of those things? Moksha. You say, like, I need to get out of this place now. I have all of the things, everything's wonderful, but now I've realized that the material world is empty. And therefore, moksha, how to come out. But Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramamanam Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan. The Bhagavatam, it doesn't get involved in dharma, artha, kama, moksha. It says, beyond all of this, the purpose is prema. Because if you develop love for Krishna, it doesn't matter whether you're here or there. It doesn't matter whether you have this or that. It doesn't matter whether you're in this position or that position. It doesn't matter whether you're in prison or you're free. If you have prema in your heart, then ultimately, atma suprasidati, you will feel contentment. And if you don't have prema or love in your heart, you may have all the artha, all the karma, you may have the perfect arrangements in life, but still in your heart you will feel empty. You will feel a vacuum. And so the whole world is running around to try to fulfill the gap which is in their heart, but they don't know how to fulfill it, because the only thing you can fill it with is prema. This room is like our heart. So what do you want to fill it with? We can fill it with garbage. We can fill it with light. Depends. There's different ways to fill it. So what do we want to fill our hearts with? So Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he is Prema Purushottam. You see, every incarnation of Krishna has a different name. So Rama is Maryada Purushottam, the Supreme Lord who shows the ideal example. Maryad, he's an ideal husband, ideal king, ideal ruler, ideal in all respects, ideal son. Krishna is Leela Purushottam, the Supreme Lord who displays the most beautiful pastimes. So very sweet. Krishna is playful, Krishna is charming, Krishna does things that you would never expect God to do, but he does it in the most spiritual way. So Krishna is Leela Purushottam. But Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he is Prema Purushottam. He is the Supreme Lord who's coming to teach us how to discover the deepest type of love in our heart and how to awaken that love. And so Caitanya Mahaprabhu comes, but most people don't know Caitanya Mahaprabhu, isn't it? How many of us, before coming to the Krishna consciousness movement, how many of us knew about Caitanya Mahaprabhu? Practically not. Once I was in the altar at the manor and there was a family next to me. So one person was introducing and he said, and this is Radha Gokulananda, Radha Krishna. This is Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman. And then he said, and this. So I was listening closely. What will he say? He said, and this is love and kush. Look at Gauranga. I thought, well, not quite. No, not love and kush. This is Gauranga, Gauranga Nityananda. Paramakaruna Pahudu Ijana Nitai Gaura Chandra. Sabai Avatar Sarasiromani Kevalaya Nanda Kanda. Narottam says that Gauranga and Nityananda are the most compassionate, the most kind. They're the forms of Krishna that become the most active in your life, isn't it? Sometimes you feel like, where is Krishna? Is he listening? Is he hearing? Is he reciprocating? Is he alive? Is he active? We want to have an interaction with Krishna, but when Krishna comes as Caitanya Mahaprabhu, then he comes as the most merciful, the most active. Caitanya Mahaprabhu is Sabai Avatar, Sarasiromani. Of all the avatars of Krishna, Gauranga and Nityananda are the Sarasiromani, which means the crest jewel. They give everything that every other incarnation gave before and more. And they give it to people who have the lowest qualification. So when Krishna comes as Caitanya Mahaprabhu, then most people in the world don't know. They don't know that Krishna came 500 years ago. But actually, Krishna's incarnation 500 years ago is the means by which to actually get back to Krishna. In this day and age, for us to go back to Krishna will be very, very difficult unless we take shelter of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Because Caitanya Mahaprabhu is giving us the process, and most importantly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving us the mercy and the grace by which we can get the purification, by which to achieve Krishna in our life. So Gaura Purnima is coming, and we are remembering Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and focusing our hearts and minds on his pastimes, on his life. And we're thinking deeply, how can we become more connected to Gauranga and Nityananda so that we can advance more in our spiritual journey. So let me just pause there for 1 second, and let me just see whether any of you so far may have any questions you want to ask before I carry on speaking more. Anything anyone would like to ask? Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for sharing your thoughts and wisdom. Something that you spoke about was faith and hope, and something that I sometimes struggle with. It seems at times that to practice Krishna consciousness, we say that you don't do it with blind faith, that it's reasonable faith, that one should understand it. But something I was thinking about was like the statement of the accepting cow dung or cow urine or the conch shell. We know in Shastra that these things are normally from any other animal is impure, but on the basis of Shastra it's considered pure. So I was just thinking that, yes, that if we don't follow blindly, but yet a statement like that almost seems like it is.
You have to follow it blindly.
Blindly, yeah.
When we say we're not following Krishna consciousness blindly, what it is that there are many other things in scripture, many other things in Krishna consciousness that you have experienced, that you have proved. And therefore, if there are other things in the scripture that you haven't proved, then you have faith in those things on the basis that there are so many other things which you have proved. You understand? So it's not like every single thing in scripture is like that. If it would be, then we would have blind faith in the whole thing. But there are many other things in scripture which were said, which have been said, that we have observed, that we have perceived, that we have proved, that we have experienced in our life. And then if there are some things that we haven't, then we say, well, this is reasonable faith because everything else was right, and maybe this is also right. Let me just suspend my disbelief for some time and let's see if there's an answer that comes later. So in Krishna consciousness we require faith, but you require faith in anything you do. In nothing in this world can you 100% prove everything in that thing. Everything in that thing. But he just keeps telling, because he's listening, keeps telling me whenever I say everything, I say everything. And when I say something, I say something. It's a bad habit of mine. So I'm just practicing. Something, everything. So it's not that everything we follow in Krishna consciousness, we're following blindly, because we have. How many of you would say after practicing Krishna consciousness you see some change in yourself? Yeah, so that means it's science, it's proof. Srila Prabhupada never presented Krishna consciousness as a religion, but it should change us. And if Krishna consciousness is not changing us, then it means we are becoming religious, we're becoming ritualistic, we're becoming mechanical. And then we're not actually achieving the true benefit of this process. So yeah, everything should be real in Krishna consciousness. There should be realizations, there should be transformation, there should be change. And that gives us the faith. And then there are other things that we suspend our disbelief for some time. Does that make sense? Yes.
My question is around faith only. So if you practice and you see transformation in yourself, it sort of becomes an impulse and urge to tell others to practice and see the transformation, but others can't see it, and it's sort of sometimes the message doesn't go across that it's a beautiful way to live life. But you seeing transformation in yourself,
yeah.
Sometimes if you're not at that level, you don't display it, right? So you experience it, but you're not reached a position where people can see the effulgence around you, and so until you reach that stage, how can you
convince others?
Not convince
or
others,
inspire them?
Yes, inspire them.
Yes, like we experience transformation in our life, and naturally then we want to share that with our family, our friends, people around us that we love.
Someone's at the front door.
Sorry.
Hopefully someone we love. They've gone. We want to share that with others, but we can't force anyone. It's not that even Srila Prabhupada's whole family became Krishna conscious and he was a pure devotee. So then what chance is there for us? The reality is we can't. Everyone has to experience Krishna consciousness for themselves. Once one couple came to Srila Prabhupada, and the husband, he said, if she does the puja, will I also get the benefit? Srila Prabhupada's answer was interesting. He said, if she eats lunch, will you feel full up? He said, no, I need to eat myself as well. So Prabhupada said, yes. Maybe some benefit is there, but ultimately everyone needs to do it themselves. So if you want to inspire someone else, the first thing is your own example will inspire them. Another way we can inspire other people is by logically telling them, well, why not give it a try? We convince them logically, philosophically, that in Krishna consciousness there's nothing to lose. You don't have to give up anything major, you don't have to change you just start adding a little bit and see if it makes any difference. So you can philosophically convince them that by doing this you're not going to lose out, but you could gain a lot. So, but ultimately, like everyone is on their journey in life. And most people, in order to really take Krishna consciousness seriously, most people will have to go through something in their life which makes them deeply question things. Like now there's an earthquake in Turkey, right? So how many? 40, 50,000 people died. So now an earthquake, you can't tell when it's going to happen, you can't tell where it's going to happen, and you can't tell on what scale it will happen. It's probably one of the most unpredictable natural disasters. But in our life, there will be life quakes. There will be things that will happen unexpectedly. Maybe tomorrow we'll find out about some medical condition. Or maybe tomorrow a relationship will break. Or maybe tomorrow we'll lose our job. Or maybe tomorrow someone really close to us will pass away from the world. If it hasn't happened already, it's going to happen. And most people, only when they go through some kind of life quake will it really cause them to inquire about life and go on that journey. So we can try with people, we can inspire by our own example, convince by our words, but ultimately everyone will have to, everyone has free will. Even Krishna can't force Arjuna, because what does Krishna say at the end of the Gita? Iti te jnanam akyatam guyat guyataram maya vimrashe tadashe shena yata ichha tatha kuru. I've given you the knowledge, Arjuna, think about it. Yata ichha, whatever is your desire, tatha kuru, that you do. So, yeah, no one, people, we can't force. People are on their own journey. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Anything I've said so far? Okay. So, maybe I'll say a little bit more about Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So in a book called Caitanya Manjusa, which is a commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam written by someone called Srinath Chakravarti, there's a very, very famous verse in which he outlines the 4 things that Caitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach the world. The first thing that Caitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach the world, prema pumartho mahan. I already explained that love, prema, developing genuine affection for in the heart. This is the ultimate goal of life. You can do everything in life, but if you don't have a situation in which you can give love and receive love, still your life will feel empty. And so Caitanya Mahaprabhu says the ultimate goal of life is to develop love. That's the ultimate goal. But then the next thing Caitanya Mahaprabhu comes to express to the world is Aradhyo, who is the one we worship? Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the one we worship. But who is the worshipable Bhagavan who we must repose our love in? Vraja Satanayas. The one who is the Vraja Isha means Nanda Maharaj, because he's the controller of Vraj, and Tanaya means the son. So the one we must repose our love in is the son of Nanda Maharaj, the dharma Vrindavanam, who is living in Vrindavan. In other words, of all forms of God, the sweetest, the most charming, the form of God that can with whom we can have the most intimate relationship of love, that is Krishna in Vrindavan. And so the second thing that Caitanya Mahaprabhu comes to teach is that Krishna in Vrindavan is the object of our love. Srila Prabhupada establishes that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. But later on in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we are establishing who is the Supreme Personality of Krishna. Because Krishna has many personalities. Just like God has many personalities, Ram, Krishna, Nishinga. Krishna also has many personalities. Dwarkadish, Mathuranath Krishna. So many Krishnas are there. So who is the supreme personality of Krishna? Vrindavan Krishna, Nandanandan Krishna, Krishna who plays a flute, Krishna who takes the cows out and the calves every day on the pasturing grounds of Vrindavan, Krishna who plays wrestling with the cowherd boys in Govardhan, in the Raman Reti, where the sands are white and soft like a pillow and a cushion. Krishna who lifts Govardhan hill. Krishna who dances with the Gopis in the sky which is lit by the full moon. Krishna who stands underneath the Vamsivat tree and invites everyone to dance with him. Yes, this is the Krishna that we are trying to connect with. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is specifically mentioning this, that this Krishna is very, very sweet. Because when we want to love someone, then we have to be completely captured by their personality. And so Krishna, he is a God who is free of all the positions, God who is free of all the formality, God who is free of all the titles and the responsibilities, and God who is the most free to just be himself. That is Krishna in Vrindavan. And so this is God in which he's expressing his innermost personality. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says we're always turning to Krishna in Vrindavan, because that Krishna can charm our heart, and that Krishna can fulfill all our desires in the deepest way. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes on to teach that if the goal is love and the object of that love is Krishna who is in Vrindavan, then who is the ideal example of devotees who have developed that love for Krishna in Vrindavan? And so then he goes on and says, Aradhyo Bhagavan Vraje Satanayastad Dharma Vrindavanam Ramya Kachit Upashana, the worship, Vrajavadhu of the milkmaids of Vrindavan, the Gopis of Vrindavan, Vargaina Ya Kalpita, that's the highest type of worship. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says the example of love is the Gopis. Why are the Gopis such an exemplary in their love for Krishna? Because their love for Krishna is not holding anything back. Our basic problem in this world is that we're holding so many things back from Krishna. 1 for Krishna, 3 for me. 2 for Krishna, but 4 for me. I have to also do something for myself. So we give something to Krishna, but then we hold a lot back for ourselves. We hold back our resources, we hold back our time, we hold back our faith, we hold back our love, we hold back so many things. So therefore they say Krishna doesn't look so much at what you give him, but he's very interested in what you're holding back. What's behind you that you're holding, that's what he wants. No, but Krishna, I'm giving all this to you. Yeah, but what's behind? That's what I want to see. So the Gopis, they were not holding anything back. You see, we are scared to risk things for Krishna. We are scared that if I give to Krishna, will I get something back from this? What will I get back from it? Whenever you make an investment, the first thing you're asking is, but what will I get back from it? If I give time here, what will I get back? So we don't have that faith that if I give time to Krishna, if I give my heart to Krishna, if I give my resources to Krishna, that ultimately that will make me happy. We still don't have that faith. Therefore, we give a little bit to Krishna, but we also invest all of those things in a lot of other things in the world. Therefore we spread the bets, isn't it? Of course we don't gamble. But if you are a gambling person, then many times what they do is they spread the bet. So don't put all of your money in one thing. Put your money in different things. So that if one doesn't work, at least another 5 things, maybe one of them will work. So in spiritual life, most of us are spreading our bets. Isn't it? Even when you go to generally people's homes, then they have everyone on the altar, isn't it? All the gods, all the demigods, all the political figures, Gandhi, Nehru, everyone, just put them, you never know, anything's possible, you know. So let's not take a chance. But the Gopis, they didn't need to spread their bets. They had the full faith that if I put everything here, I'll never be the loser. The Gopis were ready to put their reputation on the line. The Gopis were ready to put their security on the line. The Gopis were ready to put even their relationships on the line. They were ready to put everything on the line, not holding anything back, because they knew, if I give to Krishna, I'll never be the loser. I'll always get it back. So that's very inspiring for us, because most of us, we don't have that kind of level of dedication. And so when Krishna saw this dedication of the Gopis, then he said, you have made me contradict my own words. The love of the Gopis was so high that it made Krishna contradict so many things that he said in the Bhagavad Gita. How can the Bhagavad Gita be contradicted? Can the Bhagavad Gita ever turn out untrue? It did. In the face of the Gopis' love, Krishna's statements in Bhagavad Gita turned out wrong. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stateva bhajami aham. As you surrender unto me, I'll reward you accordingly. But when he saw the love of the Gopis, then he said, Napadaye ham niravadya samyujam swasadu krityam vibudayushapiva. He said, the way you've surrendered to me, I have nothing in my power to repay you. You've made me contradict my words. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Vedaham samatittani vartamana nicharjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mantu vedana kaschana. Krishna says, I know past, I know present, I know future, and I know all living beings. But when Krishna saw the Gopis, he said, you made me contradict myself. Because I said I know all living beings, but I don't know what kind of love you're experiencing for me. Therefore, I will have to come in the form of Caitanya Mahaprabhu to experience the love of the Gopis. Krishna said, you contradicted my words. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, Bhogdaram yagyatapasham sarvaloka maheshwaram. I'm the Lord of all the planets. But when Krishna came to Kusum Sarovar and the Gopis were picking flowers, and Krishna said, who gave you permission to pick flowers here? Then the Gopis defeated Krishna and said, Krishna, who are you? What did you and your cowherd boys ever do for Vrindavan? You didn't plant any trees. You didn't plant any flowers. In fact, you and the cowherd boys, you run everywhere and you make a mess. You uproot everything. And who are you anyway, Krishna? Srimati Radharani is the queen of Vrindavan. And Krishna said, yes, she is. Everywhere else I'm the boss, but in Vrindavan, Radharani is the boss. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. No, it's not true. Radharani defeats Krishna. Can you see how all of Krishna's statements were being defeated by the love of Srimati Radharani, the love of the Gopis? Therefore, love is higher than truth. Love is higher than tattva. Rasa is higher than tattva. Therefore, The love of the Gopis is very, very special. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming to experience and teach that to the world. And then the final and fourth thing. So what were the three things? The goal of life is love. Who is the object of love? Krishna in Vrindavan. And who is the ideal example of that love for Krishna in Vrindavan? The Gopis. And finally, Srinath Chakravarti says, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. That if you want to develop that kind of love, then Srimad Bhagavatam is the guidebook for developing that kind of love. So if you study Srimad Bhagavatam, if you deeply absorb your heart and mind in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, then from that absorption in Bhagavatam, that study, that understanding, then you will develop that love for Krishna in Vrindavan. Just like, maybe we'll never be in the intensity of the Gopis, but at least we'll develop some pure love. So therefore Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very important. Therefore Srila Prabhupada, he brought Bhagavatam. We can say Srimad Bhagavatam was Srila Prabhupada's most important project, because it's the project that he worked on from the very first day till the very final moment. Srimad Bhagavatam is the most important project because Prabhupada gave the best time of day to it every single morning. So Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very important for us. Therefore, we're trying to study these books, we're trying to take it a little bit deeper. And we're remembering these are the things that I have to develop love for Krishna in Vrindavan with a similar kind of selflessness like the Gopis. And in order to do that, I need to become absorbed in Srimad Bhagavatam. These are the things we need to do as a devotee. Otherwise, again, Krishna consciousness will become ritualistic. Many of us, before we came to Krishna consciousness, we were part of this tradition anyway. But now looking back, we can recognize maybe it was a little bit ritualistic. Maybe it was a little bit cultural. Maybe I just turned up to the temple because it was kind of what we had been doing for generations. And now we look back at that time and we think, I was so ritualistic then, but now. But maybe if we take a closer look, then we can see that even after coming to Krishna consciousness, you can again become like a ritualistic person again. Nowadays, now it's not like I turn up to the temple on Janmashtami just because it's a tradition. Now it can be like I put my hand in my bead bag because it's tradition. But again, we fall into the trap of becoming ritualistic. And so, by coming here and hearing all of these things, it's meant to help us realize that there's a higher goal that we're aiming for, which is the real reason that we're actually here. And that is to develop this love. So this is why we honor Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we learn about him, and we pray to him for his mercy, that we can make our life successful by developing this love. Hare Krishna. Anyone like to ask anything on these things that I've just mentioned?
Maharaj, at what point, or what would you suggest that if you become self-aware that you are being ritualistic or you're becoming ritualistic, what would you say that person should do to pull back and make that difference?
Yeah. Firstly, let me give you some classic signs that you're becoming ritualistic. First classic sign that you're becoming ritualistic is that you don't give your spiritual activities priority time in the day. First sign. Second sign that you're becoming ritualistic is that you have no plan or desire to increase your spiritual activities. Third sign that you're becoming ritualistic, when you do something, you hardly ever have quality remembrance of the goal, of who you're doing this for and why you're doing it. Fourth sign that you're becoming ritualistic, if there's any excuse that can get you out of doing that thing, then you jump at that excuse to justify why you shouldn't do it. Now begin asking yourself these questions. Am I chanting? Priority time of the day? Do I have a plan to increase it? Am I absorbed? Do I remember Krishna? Do I look for excuses not to do it? Then we can begin to understand, oh, maybe I'm becoming a little mechanical here. Maybe I'm becoming a little ritualistic. The tendency to always go back into ritual is very, very strong. So when we see that tendency is coming, then turn all of these things around. Start giving the priority time. Start trying to have quality remembrance while you're doing that activity. Start having a plan, not just to stay where you are, but increase your activity. And, to also get out of ritualistic practice, what you can sometimes do is just go into a different space, go on a retreat, or go to India, spend time in Vrindavan, and then go to a deeper level of absorption, which then takes you out of just your mechanical routine. So there are different things that you can do. So yes, we have to be very careful, because otherwise we just again become like robots, just doing the things, but not really finding Krishna. When you chant, you're meeting Krishna. Are you meeting Krishna when you chant? When you read Bhagavatam, you're meeting Krishna. Are you seeing Krishna? When you come in front of Radha Gokulananda, are you seeing Krishna? Maybe not. So then that means maybe our heart is somewhere else. See? So we have to bring our heart into it. When two people are having an argument, why do they shout? They're right next to each other. But why do they shout? Because even though they're right next to each other, their hearts have become so far away from each other that they need to shout to make up the distance between their hearts. So we can come close to the Krishna in the form of the holy name. We can come physically close to Krishna as the deities. But sometimes it feels very far away because our heart is far away. Because we've become mechanical, dry. So we don't want to be ritualistic. We did that already. We already were ritualistic, probably in our religious life before Krishna consciousness. We were all, most of us, 99%, ritualistic. We have no idea why we're doing what we're doing. It's interesting, like people come into the manor and then they ring the bell on the way out. It's like, and one person sees one person doing it and then everyone follows. It's like, why in the world would you ring a bell on the way out? Have you ever rung the doorbell on the way or going out of your house? It's amazing how we begin doing things without even thinking. We must know the meaning of everything. Like take for example Aarti. How many people know what Aarti is? How many people here know what the word Aarti means? Like if we were to pick one spiritual act, religious act, which everyone does, it would be Aarti, right? How many people know what the word Aarti means? Interesting. I won't test you today. We'll do that another day. Aarti Most people don't even know the meaning of Aarti. In Gujarati, Rat means night. Like we have Navaratri, 9 nights. So Rati comes from the word Ratri, which means night, and A, when it's a prefix, it means not, or it means the end. So Aarti literally means the end of the night. Why? Why does Aarti mean the end of the night? Because when's the first Aarti of the day? Mangal Aarti, isn't it? And what time is Mangal Aarti? Before sunrise. So when the Aarti means just as the night is ending and the sun is rising, we do Aarti because it's the end of the night. That's why it's called Aarti. This ceremony is done at the end of the night to signify the beginning of the day. But it also is called Aarti because this is signifying the end of ignorance and the awakening of knowledge. And therefore, when we do Aarti, this is the meditation that now this ceremony is signifying the end of this and that. And why those specific articles? Why incense? Why the lamp? Why the handkerchief? Why the flowers? Why do we offer these things? Because there are 5 elements in the universe, isn't it? Earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And so these elements, these articles in the Aarti represent the 5 elements. So for example, you have incense that represents the earth. Then you have, or flowers represents the earth. And then you have the lamp, fire. Then you have water. Then the air is represented by the conch, the shank. But then in the Aarti you also have the 3 subtle elements, which are the mind, intelligence, and the ego. So the mind is represented by the bhav when you give, when you offer the items, your emotion that you're giving. The intelligence is represented because every item we do a certain amount of time. So when you're doing the Aarti, your intelligence is engaged. And the ego is offered in the Aarti because you have to bow down in the beginning and end. So then you offer the ego. So the Aarti basically represents that everything in the universe is being offered back to Krishna. So I'm just giving you an example of how this is a very, very deep thing, yeah, Aarti. It's, but most people are not aware of the significance of it. How many of us, we sing the songs, but how many of us know the meaning of the song? How many of us would say we know the meaning of Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari? We don't. You know, we should know the meaning. Sharirada Vidya Jal, Jodendriya. What does it mean? It's not, we're all happy to hear it because we know Prasadam's coming. It's a very good, great song, wonderful song. Yeah, it is a nice song. What does it mean? Sharira Vidya Jal. What does that mean? The body is a lump of ignorance. And the way people say it, isn't it? Sharira Vidya Jal. I'm very happy. What it actually means is the body is a lump of ignorance. Jodendriya tahe kal. And the senses are a network of paths leading to death. Jodendriya tahe kal. You sometimes think, do these people know I'm not sure everyone knows the meaning of what this is. This is very deep, yeah. Krishna Bora Doya Moy, but Krishna is so kind. Kori Bara Jiva Jai, he gives you a way to conquer your tongue. Swa Prasad Anadilo Bhai, oh brothers, take this prasad to your heart's satisfaction. Radha Krishna guna gao and chant Krishna's name, say an amrita pao while taking these grains. Anyway, like this. So we must understand the meaning of things. Because if you do the ritual, but there's no spirit, then it's just a ritual. But when you add the spirit to the ritual, then it becomes spiritual. But how will you have spirit if you don't have knowledge? So one of the biggest problems is that people don't have proper understanding. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada is unique. Not here that we're just glorifying the ISKCON movement, but where else do you learn all of this knowledge? Did anyone ever teach this? And people are not teaching this. But Srila Prabhupada, he came to teach everything. Sorry, anyway, that was a very long answer. Yes. Any other last questions? Want to say anything?
I was just going to ask something.
Oh, you want to ask something? Okay, sure.
You mentioned about ritualistic and becomes a process, but we also see sometimes, when we've been in the mood for a long period of time, our process also becomes like bathing on an elephant. We go to the downs, we do all the other things, but the moment we're back to our pavilion again,
back to normal.
Everything is
business as usual.
Business is just like bathing the elephant. At what point do you make it really a point to understand that this is like a point now I have to make that change? What can inspire individuals to?
Yeah, Bhagavatam gives this analogy of the bathing of an elephant. Manya kunjara sochavat, Bhagavatam says. The elephant goes into the water and then it comes onto the bank, and then it again, with its trunk, it sprays sand all over its body again. So Vinod Krishna Prabhu is asking, sometimes we are like that. We go to the Dham, we bathe. I was in the Ganga, I got the darshans, I got all the Mahaprasad, got the mercy. But then we come back, and then again, back to the old habits. You can go to the Kirtan Mela, Radhadesh Mellows, and be in ecstasy, cloud 9. And then on Monday morning, you have to wake up and put your hand in your bead bag, and it's very heavy. The beads feel very heavy. So at what point does that change come? First thing we have to realize is that change usually happens in degrees. So we may think, I didn't change, I went to Vrindavan, I didn't change, but still some change is there, and maybe over many, many visits, over many, many years, we change. Day to day you can't see your hair growing. In my case, it's just not growing anymore.
So, I think there's maybe quite
a few of us, but over time the hair grows, you see. So there is change. But as you said, we have to be conscious. What can I say, Vinod Krishna Prabhu? I think for most of us, scary as it is, Krishna is going to have to shake us up a little bit. Because most of us, of our own determination, I don't know how serious we're going to become. So, therefore, only when we become desperate, only when we realize there's no other way, there's no other shelter. Otherwise, while everything is good, while everything is comfortable, while everything is going nicely, and are we really going to develop that kind of intensity which is going to connect us to Krishna? So Krishna has to give us a little few wake-up calls along the journey. So we don't wish that upon anyone. We don't want anyone to go through those life quakes. So if we can try and grasp it through hearing and chanting, it will be better. But I don't know if we are going to be able to do it.
Because in one of Prabhupada's lectures, he categorically mentions that, unless one becomes disgusted with the material life and feels, it's like chewing the chewed all over again, chewing the chewed all over again. Even, for some people that may come, chewing the chewed is there, but still we're back to, it's very nicely that you pointed out, unless some quakes come within our life, but the material nature is of such nature.
Even when those come after some time, we
seem to forget. Like, we all experience some bereavement.
Smasan Vairagya.
Yes,
In the crematorium, everyone is a philosopher. And then when you come out, forget it all. So we have to become deeply thoughtful. Krishna says actually in Gita, Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukha doshanu darshanam. If I say to you, take darshan, you may think, yeah, we'll go to the temple, we'll take darshan of Krishna. Definitely you should do that. But Krishna says every day you should have a different type of darshan. Every day you should see Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukha doshanu. This world is filled with dukkha. It's filled with problems. It's filled with difficulties. And we're just kind of here, happily going along. Samsara dava nalalida loka. It's a blazing forest fire. So we're not understanding, we're not absorbing these words, Yeah, it's... When Prabhupada came to America, he was really fascinated by different things. So one time he saw like the dustbin men coming. Maybe we shouldn't say that now. Refuse collectors. And Prabhupada said, what is this? They have the machine and then it puts the... Prabhupada said, what is this? I said, Prabhupada, this is like the garbage and then it goes into the truck and they empty all the garbage into the truck. Prabhupada said, put the whole material world into the truck. It's all... it's not a nice place. Mamupetya punarjanma dukhalayam shashvatam. And they lived happily ever after. Really? Really? Did anyone live happily ever after? No. When will we become thoughtful? We live in ignorance of these facts. So it's always waking us up. Yes, wake up. Asato ma sadgama, amrito ma amrita gama, jyotir, tamasi ma jyotir gama. Come out of the ignorance into the darkness. Come out of temporality into eternity. So it's not nice. This is what to do. Once we were in the hospital and we had two doctors, they were speaking. I don't know if they understood that we heard them, but one doctor was saying to the other doctor, he said, I love this job. I love everything about this job, but this one thing, I just hate doing it. And basically he had to go and tell one man that, he basically had cancer. So he said, I love this job, but this one thing, I just hate doing it. To tell someone the reality of life. So I could relate to that because I thought I love doing this, but then sometimes we also have to say this to the people. You're going to die. and then what is going to count in your life. And it's not a nice thing sometimes to say, but you have to tell the person, you've got cancer, you need to do something about this. So it's not always easy to speak like this. It's said that a politician, Mahabharata says, a politician, their words are like butter, but their heart is like a razor. But the saintly people, their words are like a razor, but the heart is like butter. So sometimes we also have to speak a little strongly. Vajradapi kathorani mriduni kusumadapi. A saintly person, our teachers, they are sometimes softer than a rose, and other times harder than a thunderbolt. Because we need to be jolted out of our ignorance. So sometimes they speak strongly. So don't feel bad that here we are on a nice Friday night while everyone's partying, and here we are talking about death. Because death is your entrance into the eternal Leela, the divine play, if you hear this. But if you don't hear this, then, death is taking everything away from you and then throwing you again into the material world for struggle.